Alrighty then, we're going to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog. Excited that this movie is finally out. John wearing his Nintendo shirt. I'm still dressed sort of like Dusty from Stranger Things because we just shot a reaction to that. Anywho, the highly anticipated film, or highly talked about, let's put it like that. IMDb has the plot description like this. After discovering a small blue fast hedgehog, a small town police officer must help it defeat an evil genius who wants to do experiments on it. I'm seeing a lot of different articles, just headlines. I haven't actually read or listened to any reviews yet that keep coming out along the lines of Sonic is actually better than I thought. They did it. They made a great Sonic movie. And a lot of people are still underwhelmed. To me, it really just boils down to this experience. What is your standard that you expect from a film that is targeted towards families? My basic thought on this was, it feels like a 90s movie I would have grown up watching. The game came out in, 91?
91, yeah, it was the first.
I could see the filmmakers going, let's make this like a 90s movie. But here's the thing. I couldn't truly tell if it was intended to be that way or not. And that's sort of where the line kind of faults for me on this, because I did have fun for a good amount of it. There was a good amount where I was kind of bored, if I'm being honest, but there's also a good amount where I really did enjoy a lot of it. Weirdly, the character that I actually enjoyed the most is everyone's raving about Jim Carrey. And don't get me wrong, Jim Carrey is really good in this film. What I liked about what Jim Carrey did as Dr. Robotnik was he actually made a character out of it. This could have easily been the case of, let's get Jim Carrey in the role, let's just have him do his Jim Carrey thing and let him let loose, and that's about as far as it goes. Weirdly, there are times where I didn't think I'd say this for Dr. Robotnik. He brings a certain layer of gravitas to certain scenes in this film where you could really feel the character's upbringing, his history. Some credit goes to the writing, of course, but I really thought Jim Carrey did a really good job here. This is harkening back a little bit more towards the early days of Jim. I call him Jim, sometimes just Jay. The early days, because sometimes when Jim Carrey does sort of these hyper-kinetic, manic performances like we grew up watching him do, it can feel forced. This one actually felt a lot more natural, and so I was happy about that. That being said, my favorite character was actually James Marsden in this.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought he struck the right balance. He really knew what film he was in. A big part of what made a lot of the scenes with Sonic feel believable was his performance. Now, I don't know the behind the scenes here. It's like, of course, we all are aware that there was the animation that pissed off all the fans, and then they went back and redid it to make him look a lot more like the video game Sonic the Hedgehog character. But I thought what made a lot of those scenes feel very believable was the way James Marsden interacted with this character who was definitely not there on set, you know?
Hey, that's reaction shots and things like that. I mean, and he does a lot just naturally in his performance. People underestimate the power of the reaction to sell, an effect or whatever. And yeah, especially when James Marsden finally truly enters the plot, everything gets a little bit better. And yeah, Sonic himself gets a lot more believable just in the world.
Yeah. Ben Schwartz is doing the voiceover for Sonic. I thought he did a really good job voicing the character. Sonic was adorable. He was cute at times. They really emphasize how lonely of a character he is, and that's something I appreciate about the movie. This could have easily been, to put it blunt, just a simple cash grab, even though I'm kind of just settling on a point of, it was fun. It was about what I expected. In fact, a little bit better than what I expected. If you watch our reaction to the second trailer, I was like, yeah, the design does look better, but we still don't know if it's going to be a terrible film or not. It's like, it doesn't matter if you make the design better. The film itself could probably be really awful still. And it wasn't. There's a middle chunk because this film turns into a road trip buddy comedy movie. And there are times where I felt it was a little bit meandering and a little bit unnecessary. But like I said, at the very top of this, it's the standard you expect from a family film. Some people might go, there are some great family films that are truly just amazing films. So why should the quality standard of expectation dip just because this film is targeted audiences? And to each their own. Subjective. One side of me is, this could have been a lot better. this could have been written so much better. I wasn't a big fan of the first act of this movie. It was really when the plot started kicking in, when Sonic and James Marsden are actually interacting with one another, when the film really started to click with me. Jim Carrey and James Marsden start to interact with each other. That started getting really good. The thing that I felt was the missing ingredient, regardless of the standard discussion, was there could have been more of a sense of wonder with this fantastical story that they're telling here. That was the main missing ingredient for me. But overall, Yeah, I mean, I feel like Sonic fans would probably be pleased, you know?
Yeah, overall, I mean, especially if you grew up on the cartoon too, which I've seen episodes of the different cartoons. I haven't really grown up on them, more the video games for me. But yeah, I mean, as a representation of Sonic and as one of these films that seeks to put a character from a fantasy world into the real world, I feel like I've seen that go a lot worse than this. And Sonic wound up to me being kind of both the movie I hoped it could be and hoped it wouldn't be or was afraid it would be.
Yeah.
It kind of straddles that line because I think at some point everything in this movie works to a degree, and then at some points it also doesn't. So it was just kind of a hit and miss experience. I agree that it could have used a bit more wonder and a bit more consistent urgency because the road trip elements do start to affect the plot in ways where you just start to ask, why are they doing this when like they're being hunted down by a brilliant, robot-toting scientist? Yeah, the relationship between James Marsden and Sonic is really dear by the end of it. Sonic can get a little aggravating at times, to be honest, because he's so high energy and so dialogue heavy.
Yeah, there are times where the only character that actually would kind of annoy me was Sonic, but that's not to say there were plenty of times where I still felt endeared by the character, and I did find him very charming. It's kind of like that complaint that I've heard, the line that's written with Harley Quinn in Birds of Prey. Which weirdly, I heard this. I actually saw some. You hear about those hilarious tweets?
No.
People like Birds of Prey fans talking mad smack on Sonic leading up to it before it came out. Some people took it like as a serious protest, but I just thought they were really funny. If you guys haven't seen those tweets, they're so freaking funny. The Sonic design, while I think it's so much better looking than the original design, I was kind of pulled in and out, especially in the first half. The design of Sonic never really blended with the environment. It never felt like real to me. It's like when you can get lost in the movie and you just kind of like a Roger Rabbit vibe or a Space Jam vibe when you just like settle into it. You go along with it. You buy it. There's a lot especially in the first act where I'm like, I don't feel like this character's real.
Yeah, it kind of had that quality to me that Goosebumps, their animation for that first movie was done by like Sony Pictures Animation, so they have this animated character type quality to them, and I feel like that's kind of what happened here. Even Detective Pikachu has some of that where you're so used to seeing them animated a certain way so that when they come 3D and you know they're all CG, sometimes it is kind of hard to lose them into the reality of what's going on, especially because Sonic is, for the most part, the only thing like that on screen for the most of the movie. I don't know how long it'll take everybody to get used to the effect. Ultimately, I think where it needs to succeed, it does, and then it's the question of like, how much do you forgive? Because there are lots of like plot threads that get dropped or things that you can think about and go, did they just forget completely about
It's also exceptionally cliche.
It's very straightforward.
But there's also throughout, it wasn't like I started laughing and then I stopped like permanently. There were times throughout this whole movie where the movie would surprise me with something that I genuinely thought was really funny.
It does have some genuine good jokes, good bits, good moments, good action, good acting.
The action was cool. There are sequences that are more of a quirkier version of the Quicksilver sequences in Days of Future Past and Apocalypse. It's like we've seen that exact kind of sequence done in those movies, but they take a much more childish approach to the antics of when he does them.
In terms of Jim Carrey, I thought he was a lot of fun too. There is, I feel like, a decent amount of padding in this movie with just like Sonic or Robotnik related hijinks of some kind. And with Jim Carrey, he is the one element of this movie. It's like hip Robotnik. He is Dr. Robotnik, like in the cartoons and stuff, and in the video games, he's the loud, egotistical scientist guy. He's like Robotnik-ish for most of the movie.
I think the thing that happens with Jim Carrey specifically, there's a lot of great scenes with him, especially when he's interacting just one-on-one with characters. And then there are these moments where they're like, do Jim Carrey things that don't seem like what Dr. Robotnik would do. Let's just do a whole scene where you're dancing.
Where you're just dancing.
Where you're just doing Jim Carrey goofy body language stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like that works for an audience if you loved Jim Carrey growing up. And I did. He was one of my heroes personally. I loved Jim Carrey growing up, and I always root for the guy. I would still get pulled out and be aware, like, this is only working for me because I grew up on Jim Carrey. But if you're not a big Jim Carrey fan, this is probably just annoying. It doesn't make any sense why he's doing this. With this character. I
kind of thought like this movie's felt a little torn between PG and PG-13, partly because, Sonic's cute and cuddly and they want to bring the kids in, but also everybody who grew up on this game is in their 20s or 30s now, at least. So, some of it did also feel like it was straddling that line as well. If you're just in for like a pretty fun Sonic movie, I think it gets that. It could have been a lot worse.
It's about what I expected. It's fun. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bullet dodged a bullet, and probably not
Yeah.
so worth all that controversy.
Yeah, I'm not sugarcoating. I'm not like, people are gonna get mad at us. We love Birds of Prey.
It's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Especially in February, if you want to go have a fun time and you care at all about Sonic, it's all right.
Yeah, go
you know?
yeah. Well, what did you guys think of Sonic? Leave your thoughts down below. Do you want them to start up that Sega universe that their opening logo was clearly hinting at that they want to develop?
Sega.
Subscribe, click that notification bell to get notified whenever we got a new YouTube video up. And hey, let's end this with a Derek Mitchell has been having a great year so far, apparently. I know last year was rough for him. This year, he's saying everything's been going great. His job is doing wonderful. It looks like his life has been on a speedy adventure. I was going through this going, who is the most like the James Marsden on the shout out list right now? And it's definitely Derek Mitchell.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy was an Uber Lyft driver for quite some time, so I can see him hitting the road one day with a Sonic the Hedgehog like character, having a ball, exploring life. Create a bucket list, Derek, and I hope you start knocking all them off as soon as possible.
Yeah, man, your phone's going to be ringing off the hook when you step into those James Marsden shoes right there. So crack your knuckles and, get out of the shadow of everyone else around you and just hit the road. Tails.